Well, I am so grateful today to have an incredible guest here. Reverend Carlton Teabout is our guest. Carlton is an Agape minister and so much more. His full bio will be in the show notes. Welcome to the Element Q podcast. I'm your host, TJ Woodward, and I'm thrilled to have you join us for this empowering journey. Each week, we shine a light on the authors, thought leaders, therapists, coaches, and healers of all types who are making a difference in the LGBTQ plus community. Together, we honor those who came before us, the courageous and resilient trailblazers who stood for our rights and recognition. Their strength laid the foundation we stand on today. Here, we celebrate their legacy by diving into the stories, insights, and tools that inspire gentleness, healing, and transformation. So get ready to be uplifted and empowered. This is the Element Q podcast. Carlton, welcome to the show.
Thank you, TJ. I feel welcomed, held, loved, and ready to play.
I love it. And so, as always, we took a few moments to drop in and ask ourselves how we wanted to start this conversation. And I love what came through for you, this idea of what it means to mature as a gay man and within the LGBTQ plus community, what it means to be a more mature member. I will not say an elder statesman or anything like that, but I will say that as we grow older with different life experiences, now what? Right? Now what?
Right. It's so funny that, even when you were, I just said the word mature. I had no problem around it. But once I heard you say mature, I was like, oh, yeah, that's who I am. It's like but this is interesting because there is kind of race consciousness or the societal energy and judgment around maturity, and what just came to me and what I shared with you earlier is that, I just recently was at Palm Springs Pride, and
Speaking
there
of
was
maturity.
nothing right, there was nothing but maturity. However, gorgeous, powerful, strong, out contributing, mature members of this community. And that is something that I always knew, but I really haven't participated in Palm Springs Pride often. And when I went there, I was like, oh, this is me. And look at us. Like there's a strength and a power that we have come through, most of us coming through the 80s and being and participating and making it and surviving, not and thriving. And that's a big thing. So I'm really, really interested in the connection with the younger members of our community to really what's possible. And, a lot of young ones might be thinking, oh, I'm not going to end up like that. No, yes, you will. And you should be proud to end up like that. So that's kind of the healing presence I want to be. Is like, let's be present with each other and celebrate each other in all of our different stages.
I love it. One thing that's really interesting, you talked about race consciousness. And for anyone who doesn't know what that means, that just means collective consciousness. The human race has these ideas that many of us absorb. And if I'm unconscious about it, I'm going to take on other people's points of view. And I read this study, which I think was incredible, that said essentially that the 60s is when people identify as being the happiest, most productive, and most successful. And yet collective consciousness is like 20s. And I'm like, oh, no, thank you. I do not want to go back and re-experience that. I mean, I wouldn't change it, but my 20s were really feeling, I got sober young, like 20 years old. I came to New Thought Teachings young, like 22 years old. And yet my 20s were feeling very unsure of myself, very unclear. I mean, I felt so unattractive. I look at a picture when I was 23. I'm like, oh, no, I was not. It's so funny. And yet I was very uncomfortable in my own skin.
Right.
Every decade I've gotten more comfortable. And yet we do still have this bias that's kind of this anti-ageist or anti-aging bias. And, people say, well, it beats the alternative. We're not even sure if that's true. We'll know as we make our next transition, I suppose. But like here we are, and I get to choose how I perceive it. And I turned 60 this year, and I've never been happier. I've never felt
Yeah.
more alive. I've never felt more on purpose. I've never felt a deeper sense of making a contribution to the
Yes.
earth. I'm way more comfortable in my skin. So like I am happy.
Right on. And so I'm right there with you. I just turned 62 in November. And I also did a 62-day challenge, which
Mhm.
was about really letting go of any shame or judgment around aging and around the body. And so for my whole life, I've had a thing around my body and, not looking the way I should and all of, there's so much there and we don't have time to go into all of that. However, what did take place through this 62-day challenge? It was from the 25th to the 25th September to November, 62 days before my 62nd,
Ooh.
and really taking that on, I shifted consciousness, my own consciousness, about how I feel, how I'm supposed to look, and am so free of that judgment and shame. It really literally is gone. There's a whole story on how that took place, but it was really by doing the work in consciousness, not so much trying to exercise and eat the right thing. And those are all good things, but really the work is in consciousness. If we're present with being the perfect emanation of spirit that is taking place in all of the different stages of our lives, we're good whether we're certain amount of pounds and certain age or not. And the thing that you said about when I was young, yeah, I can remember thinking, oh my God, I feel awful in this outfit and blah, blah, blah. And then looking at that picture,
Yeah.
I would kill. I would kill to have that body, that look right now. I don't really need to be there, in the experience, but I would
Right.
kill to have that shape right now.
That's
Yeah.
right. And it's interesting because I think the reminder for myself is to be present and be grateful for exactly what it is in this moment, who we are, where we've come. And I actually do want to lean in a little bit to the body image stuff because I do think it's heightened within the gay community. Specifically, I mean, my experience as a gay man, I remember, I lived in San Francisco for 30 years, and I remember walking through the Castro one day, and I'm like, these 30 and 40 and 50-year-olds are all dressing like they're 18. And it was just an interesting awareness. And then of course I, held up the mirror as I was walking to the gym to get my perfect body with the outfit that looked like I was 18. And there's something that on one hand, it's quite beautiful. Like we get to stay really young. Like gay men tend to look younger because there's a lot of reasons I think for that. And then there's also the shadow side of that, which is like something about like trying to have the perfect external image. And I know for myself, that sprung from shame,
Mm,
the shame of not being good enough, not feeling good enough. It was a root cause of my addictive behavior, but it was also just such an important part of the identity that I needed to unravel.
mm,
And what I mean by that is like I was identifying with myself as a broken or less than or not good enough human. And I would love to tell you that that ended the day I got into recovery or the day that I, stepped into a new thought community. But it took at least a decade and probably more like 20 years until I was 40 when I really had the opportunity to do some deeper healing.
yeah. Yeah. I feel you. I feel you. Thank you for that. And I still work with it. The shame part, I love that I'm free of the shame and the judgment of it, but there's still the habitual thought
Yeah.
that exists within, it's in my subconscious and the idea, I was birthed into it. It's something that as a little baby, I shared the story. I was 10 months old. I was 32 pounds and I
Mm.
was walking, but there's stories about me being this big kid and
Right.
there's stories. So it followed me my whole life. So then even when I first came out and not came out, but when I really started being active in the gay community, going to the gym and all those things, I was probably in great shape, but I didn't think so. And so I was comparing myself, in the gym when those cute boys are doing their workout right next to you, and I'm just and something shifted around that. That is just powerful in my own identity. And I'm gonna fast forward to these days. When I go to the gym, I'm not thinking about anybody else that's that's around me, right? But when I walk by the mirror, I'm always shocked at who's that guy? Like
Yeah.
who's that bear? Right? And
Yeah.
then I go, oh, I'm a bear.
Own
And
it.
I'm kind of a cute looking bear. So, and so I walk in it. So there's a shift, but it's our own acknowledgement.
Yeah.
It's our own acknowledgement of, just as you were saying, as being present with who we are now and celebrating who we are now. And when we do that, we get to choose a new way of being. Like what works for me now at 62? Because I'm certainly not going to do the things that I did when I was 30. I will break myself or break someone else. Like there's just no way that that's going to work, right? But I can choose a new way. I
Mm.
can experiment in new ways. I can find what works for me and how I get to walk in this world and how I get to celebrate myself at this stage of life. And that's what every one of us gets to do in any given moment.
That's right. And one of the things we know, and for anyone watching who doesn't know what we mean by new thoughts, you can definitely look it up. That New Thought was a movement that started in the late 1800s that has branched into some different spiritual communities, Unity, Centers for Spiritual Living, and of course, the mothership to me, which is Agape International Spiritual Center here in Los Angeles, led by and founded by Michael Beckwith, who, of course, is our friend and wonderful colleague and in many ways mentor. What we know in the New Thought teaching is that, the way I frame it is we have four rooms: physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual. And we know that the power of the mind and the power of the way we relate to our emotions, and even maybe more deeply, the essence of who we are affects the other rooms. And so, as we understand that we're infinite spiritual beings, as I understand I'm an infinite spiritual being, that actually affects the body. Now, I have been in certain eras of my New Thought evolution where I thought if something didn't look perfect on the outside, I was doing it wrong. So, I was doing
Mm,
what we might call metaphysical malpractice. What did I do
mhm,
to cause this? But we
mhm.
know that we can change our bodies and change our minds and change really even our relationship with emotions by activating something much deeper within ourselves, this infinite power. What's interesting, Carlton, about that is, I get to live in these two different worlds in a way, which they're not really different, like the spiritual world and then the behavioral health world. And for me, I brought them together. But what I love is science is catching up.
Yeah,
Science is like, oh, the way we see ourselves actually does affect the way we
yeah,
experience the world, the way we talk about ourselves, the way we view ourselves. Am I looking at myself? I mean, I was thinking about, as you were talking, I'm thinking, when I was a kid, 60 and 62 was genuinely old. That was the narrative. And now we have a totally different point of view. And that different point of view changes everything.
absolutely, absolutely. And I love where I love where this conversation is going, and I love the it's always an inside job,
Yeah.
right? It's always an inside job. So if there's the activity that is taking place in, and I'm going to take us out of the body for a moment and talk about relationships.
Yeah.
There's so many opportunities that we have to um, one create the right relationship with the spirit or the source of our understanding, but also to really be in right relationship with self, with our own being. And when we have that, then all of our outside relationships, all of the connections that we have are going to reflect how we're being with ourselves. And in particular, it's like, when we get in those places where there's frustration or there's not collaboration or we're up against something, I often up until now, I've often thought there's they're not seeing me. Those
Mhm.
people, I'm not, there's an energy that's not in alignment with me.
Mhm.
And the truth is like, oh, where can I get in right alignment with myself? And every single time, just that simple question and create and having a practice that you can be present with yourself in a particular way. But as soon as I shift that and I become what I'm seeking from another, then the law takes place. You absolutely are in right relationship, and they didn't change. They didn't change. I changed. Yeah.
Well, two avenues I want to go down. One, I'll give you a minute to think about this. I'm going to say it's the million-dollar question, and then I'll let everyone know that Carlton takes PayPal, Venmo, and he's going to answer this question, and it'll be worth $1 million. No pressure there, Carlton. But the question I'm going to ask you in a moment is, how do we do that, right? Because I
Mhm.
that is, great and true when I'm in
Mhm.
right relation with self and I'm unplugging from the conditions of the world. And what I mean by that is I think what you said is so astute and so important that I want to lean in. That's the second thing before you even answer the how we do it. It got you talked about, and this of course is just how I heard it. It may not be what you said, so I always want to acknowledge that. But I heard and I related to this idea that I had at a very early age felt unseen. And I think a big part of that is being a little gay boy in Indiana in the 1970s. And I talk about it a lot, but it was a very real experience for me, or it felt very real. And so I felt unseen and unheard and invalidated. And because of that, that was sort of like my core false belief, but we know it's actually was my core vibration. I was walking around with this. And so I was constantly getting activated by this sense of please see me. And you know what, Carlton, it got pretty absurd. I needed the spotlight. I needed to look a certain way. I needed to, dance on the table, literally, figuratively, and literally, so that someone could see me. But ultimately, that never did work. I had to do this deeper inner work, which is now how we lead to the $1 million question. So how?
Yeah,
How do we do this?
yeah, absolutely. And again, in a limited amount of time. But the really, I think the first and foremost, if it's a spiritual practice. That's for me. That's my first step. Is I have created a space to be able to really connect with myself, and I talk about it all the time. Like I have a sanctuary of the soul. I'm present with myself, but there is a lot of other practices that you can take on or you can get help
Yeah.
with, and one is inner child work. So inner child work for sure was the healing for me, because I have a similar story. You know, not being seen as a kid, and it's a lie. I was actually being
Yeah.
seen, but there was that one experience where I wasn't seen, and I did get picked up when I was supposed to, that I took on as a belief system. And what we get to do when we do inner child work is we get to be the one that sees our little self, right? And so we get to really love ourselves, and in that, first with vulnerability and compassion, but when we get to be present with ourselves, to understand that, oh, we took on this belief, and oh, of course, because you took on this belief 55 years ago,
Yeah.
now that when something similar comes up, you have the response. But the fact of the matter is, when you do the inner child work, you do reparenting, you become the one that sees yourself, and you let yourself know you will never not show up. You will always see yourself. And so I get to do that almost every day, probably 10 times a day. It's like, oh, you're feeling that feeling, but you're right here. I'm right here with you. And the big question is, what does that part of me that is feeling that need?
Yeah.
What does that part of me that's not being seen need right now? And I'm always available to give it to myself. So there's that. I have one other thing.
Yeah, so beautiful. And I want to like talk about that for a moment before you
Okay.
go, because the inner child work has been so life-changing for me. And in a sense, I think this is you're going right to the root of it, because I remember at age 7 closing my heart. I remember at age 5 deciding I was stupid. And that was just the word I used as a 5-year-old that I repeated to myself. And these things plagued me. I'm unlovable, I'm unworthy. And as you said, I then saw it everywhere. And what many of us know to be true is when I have that as a core false belief or a vibration, I literally can only experience that which I believe. And so I like to be provocative and say you can actually change the past, because the past is alive in my head,
Absolutely.
it's alive in my consciousness, it's alive in my reactivity, and it's stuck in my body in many cases. So the reparenting, as you're saying, is going back and providing that which I perceive that I didn't get. And I love that you added
Right.
that, right? I perceive that I didn't get it, or there was that moment when I absorbed this huge thing. And the key to this to me is it's not a cognitive process, because my 5-year-old didn't even have a fully developed
Right.
brain. So I made this huge life decision that I was, intellectually deficient. And I
Mm-hmm.
didn't go back to school, Carlton, until I was 40. I went back, to
Mm-hmm.
Unity Institute to do ministerial studies.
Mm-hmm.
And that was in part or in large part because I didn't ever think I could do it. I couldn't read, I couldn't retain all of it, the narrative that I had. And so when we go back, as you said so beautifully, and provide presence for our younger self, usually in my experience is something didn't get felt.
Right.
And then it's okay to feel. And I get to now hold myself. And, when I do inner child work with clients, especially if they're in treatment for a substance use or a mental health concern, a lot of times the kid is like, oh, yeah, you say you're going to be here for me, but you've been abandoning me. So we need to heal that because I did abandon myself for
Yes.
many, many years. So I had to
Yes.
rebuild trust with my younger self.
Yes, yes, and that's it right there. So there's that unmet need. We get to meet the need, but even again, it's the habit. So there's certain times like I catch myself, checking out, abandoning myself. But
Yep.
now because we have the muscle, right? We've done the work. It's easier to catch it. But that powerful, powerful work. I love. I so love inner child work. I want to talk about the other aspect of what we get to do to be in right relationship
Yeah.
is really court ourselves.
Mm.
Oh, I know what the other thing is. Back up. So the idea of that not being seen has a real feeling of truth to us as we're in the flow of that false belief, right? It's really true. But the absolute truth is that it's not. The
Yeah.
absolute truth is that there is a light that is so bright that didn't get seen that we tried to, and even if it took to 40, it still came out, right? It still was the shining light. And there's a lot of, we could talk about survival self, right? We could talk about the way that, having to respond to that particular belief system. Really, I was able to survive. And now I freaking teach from it. You know what I mean? Now it's the platform. It's the what we have healed is our the space in which we get to heal others. So in many ways, I'm very thankful. In many ways, I'm grateful for that experience, and to always know that there's that light that nobody, because they didn't pay attention to us, could bury, or even ourselves, abandoning ourselves, even though that may have been a real experience.
Yes, and that to me is the heart of this. And that
Yeah,
because conscious recovery is my modality I've created that infuses or blends our powerful new thought, ancient wisdom, or ageless wisdom teaching with psychology. And
right,
not all of psychology, but a large portion of psychology tends to start with a deficit model. Like there's something wrong with you, and I'm here to help you fix that. Not all psychology, and it's changing dramatically. I mean, in the last 10 years, spiritual psychology, depth psychology, a lot of these things have moved to the forefront, but still on some level, there isn't an acknowledgement that underneath all of this, there is still this infinite being or this unharmed and unharmable place. And that's why when I talk about conscious recovery, I talk about that as the founding principle because you and I both know through our experience that when I'm anchored in that, doing the healing work with the traumatic experiences or the not being seen, or as you said, it's like there's no finish line to this.
right,
It's like at any moment I can say, oh, there's that old energy field again. There's that old narrative. I feel it, I see it, but I have a dramatically different relationship with it today in large part because I understand at the root of my being, at the root of every human's being, is this light, this infinite power. That's a different starting point for a lot of folks. And
right.
I see a lot of people doing trauma work saying things like, well, they're not ready, they're not stable enough. Well, stability comes from knowing this depth of who and what we really are beyond the stories and beyond the experiences.
Right. 100%. And the term that I use, and I know it's not used mainstream psychology, is wholeness. Right. We start like when someone sits before me, or even when I get the call for the appointment, it's I'm already knowing their wholeness. And regardless of what stage of the game, what's the experience that's going on, no matter what, wholeness is. And that's key. And that's a learning. There's a trust and a faith that has to come with that. But that's what I know. I know
Well,
that beyond the appearance and circumstance or condition or even diagnosis, wholeness is.
that's right. And there's two things that are exciting. You can see I'm very excited
I
at this
know, I
point.
love it.
One is psychology is starting to do this. It's
Hmm.
really amazing. Like we have a wholeness approach, right? We have to, of course, give it a model, right? Which is
Right,
why
right,
I
right.
created conscious recovery. Like, let me give you a model to
Yes.
point to the wholeness within every person. And that as a starting point is profoundly different than
Yeah.
the deficit starting as broken. Now, here's what I want to lean into. And this is the most important part to me. I cannot possibly see someone else's whole until I've done enough of my own work on that. And so, as clinicians, right? So, we take the spiritual piece out and just say, as clinicians, clinicians are often trained to diagnose and treat. And many clinicians now, and more, are understanding that we get to do our own work. But this wholeness piece is something really different. Yes, we get to do our own healing work. Of course, that's important. But to know my own light is to see the light in another. And that is how my life was literally saved when I was 21 or 22 years old. My mentor, Mary Helen, who was a, New Thought, just amazing New Thought human and just this powerful being, saw me as whole and complete when didn't know I could access it. And it was in her viewing me. Now quantum mechanics is measuring this, but back then it was I could feel the love coming from her. We don't talk about that a lot in psychology, but that's truthfully what we're doing.
Absolutely. And you just like my whole being just lit up, because that's what I've said yes to in my life. I mean, I think that's the first line on my website. It's the first caption. It says something like, uh, I know that I am light, and it is my joy to make sure that everyone who comes into my presence know that they are light too. Like, yeah, that's everything.
And what I love about that is when I am able to know my own light, I can also welcome what we might call darkness. And I think
Absolutely.
that's where, and I'll give a plug for Agape because a lot of New Thought, in my experience, and this is just my experience, is a little bit in the we're only going to talk about the love and light. And one of the things I love about Michael and his teachings and Agape in general is we're embracing it all. It's much more integrative. All I mean by that is like, yeah, let's also embrace the shadow. Let's also like, because, Pema Chodron, I love this quote. Compassion is not a relationship between the healer and the wounded. It's a relationship between two equals. Only
Mhm.
when I know my own darkness well can I be present with the darkness in another. And that's true for light too. And
Yeah.
so as we integrate more fully and welcome all parts, because you talked about, I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't change the trauma. I wouldn't change. And doesn't mean it was easy, but it became like I can be uniquely available for someone else because of my own journey.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we could go to scripture even like it's been written for a right. The lightness and the dark are all the same. Would the light know itself without the darkness? All of that. And then for me, the opportunity every single time that there is a conflict, some darkness, an experience that is unlike light, right? Every single time there is an opportunity to grow and to expand, and that is a stepping stone to evolution, to a deeper knowing, to experiencing a greater truth. All of the things. Yeah,
Yes. And to be able to lean in and to really not just intellectually understand that the light and dark are so important, because even that's just a paradigm, right? This feels light, this feels dark. But the truth is, to use this analogy a lot. If,
right,
if
right,
you put a seed out in the sun, it will just burn, nothing will grow. You have to put it into the soil and it has to have
right.
certain
Yeah,
conditions. And part of those conditions is to be in this like womb experience. And sometimes I need to go within, sometimes I need to cry, some things I need to heal, and other times I need to be out expressing the light. So
yeah,
it's all part of
100%.
the journey.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Believe it or not, we're toward the end of our time. So,
Wow,
in a
wow.
moment, I'll ask you if you have any closing thoughts. I think we could talk for another hour, but I just
That's
I want to just shine some appreciation on this conversation and on
yeah,
you. I remember when I met you at Agape, instantly I felt your love and light and just felt so. What's interesting? I think we could see each other.
yeah. Yeah,
After
no
we're talking
question.
about that earlier programming
For
being
sure.
insane. So I
Yes.
appreciate you.
Yeah. I remember those rooms and I remember seeing you like, who's this?
Who's this
And
guy?
then, oh, but like it was like, don't need to know. Like it was just, it was just a great energy. Yeah, yeah, I remember. Beautiful.
Anything you want to say in closing to anyone who's watching or listening?
Oh, um, yeah, just everything that we spoke about, I'm taking it on myself too. It's like we can continue to remember the light that we are, continue to see ourselves, continue to know that even in those moments when we're not seeing ourselves, there's a thing, there's a light, there's a power that is seeing and wanting to know more of itself as you. And that's the whole belief system that I make myself available for. Is like let that light emerge and make itself known and touch all that we come in contact with. So be contagious with it. Be
Yes,
contagious with
I
that.
love it. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Thank you, Carlton. Thank you for this conversation. Everyone who's watching or listening right now, we always invite you to like and subscribe. It does make a difference for the platform, and the platform really is to have these conversations that help people reconnect with the truth of who they are. And from that, in the midst of that reconnection, heal anything that's unlike the truth of who and what we are. So if this particular episode has touched a part in you that you think will touch someone else, please share it with them, because that's really why we're doing this. So peace, love, and blessings, everyone. Thank you again, Carlton, very much for your
Thank you so much,
wisdom.
TJ. Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Element Q podcast. It's an honor to walk this path of healing and transformation with you. Remember, the courage and resilience of those who came before us live on in each of us. Let's continue to carry their legacy forward as we support one another in creating a world filled with love, gentleness, and empowerment. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast with someone who needs to hear it. Together, we're building a brighter future, one story at a time. Until next time, I'm TJ Woodward, and this has been the Element Q podcast.